What's good, comic familia? Welcome to class, and I'm at the table virtually with Sammy from Skeleton Key Comics. How you feeling?
Hey everyone, I'm doing good. I'm super excited. But first, let's say congratulations to Drew Fulton.
Drew Fulton
is our winner.
That's right. We're doing giveaways every single video. Hit the like, slap the subscribe, take your seats. We got to talk about some comic books. We're actually talking about some really fun stuff today, aren't we? But before we get to that, let's remind them about the sponsor of the show. We're talking about Whatnot. Whatnot Comics, available for both Androids and iPhones. Sammy, you're on Whatnot doing more than one sale every single week.
Yes, absolutely. It's so much fun. Honestly, my favorite part is hanging out in the chat. I'm not gonna lie. The books are amazing, but the conversation is just so epic. We do it every Wednesday night, every Saturday morning, and we trickle in some random sprinkles throughout the week.
That's what I've been doing, and it's fun because Russ, the comic sensei, the co-host of the trending video every week here on YouTube, he's been just randomly scheduling sales because he's got the books and he's having such a grand time. And I think that's worth mentioning. This is fun for both sellers and the buyers because we have the whole comic fam in one place doing dollar start 60-second auctions, and it's happening 24/7 on this app. Download it, follow both of us, links in the description. And what do we got on deck? What are we talking about today, Sammy?
All right, so we're talking about Mark Jewelers.
Mark Jeweler variants, yes.
Our favorite items to take to Comic-Cons, like the essentials. Like if you leave this item, if I leave any one of these items behind, I'm like, oh, cringe city.
That's right. That's how it goes, though. We got to tell the comic fam because, you know, Emerald City up here in Washington is like a week away. I can't believe it. It's been a couple years. And the con season, I suspect, I hope, prayer to Thor, that next year we're going to be back. We're going to be hitting the con scene. We're going to be able to hang out in person, Sammy, and the comic fam can see us. So we want to provide some value. So hit the like, slap the subscribe, comment down below. It'll enter you to win a giveaway. We'll announce that, so stay tuned. But let's just jump right into it. We're talking Mark Jewelers. We're talking, actually, Mark Jeweler variants. Because Mark Jeweler comics have just been like normal comics for such a long time. But really, these have become a collectible item in themselves, and now we call them variants.
Context for those of you who have never seen Mark Jewelers, because they are hard to come by. This is my absolute favorite Mark Jeweler ever because it's purple, my favorite color. But this is what a Mark Jeweler looks like. It is in the center of the comic book, and it's basically a jewelry advertisement where the military could take that, pick their jewelry for their ladies, and mail it back in, and it goes to them.
That's right.
Simple as that.
Back in like 1970-ish, right around there. You know, some places, different sites say it's different things, but particularly in the 70s that started in this company, Mark Jewelers, which, by the way, is no longer a company. I know. I looked. I purchased the domain. I digress. This particular company thought it would be a good idea to market to a target demographic that happened to fall within the comic book demographic, largely males between 18, 25 years old. And there's a lot of military personnel who are purchasing comic books, specifically around bases and nearby military areas. And what would happen is upwards of 5% of the run would get this 4-page, you know, front and back, 2 pages ad from the company. And some things that you would find in there are like class rings, for example. You know, if someone just got out of high school, they're going to go serve our country and they want to be, you know, the jewelry company thought, hey, let's do some class rings. But what about the sweethearts, right? You know, what about the people at home, you know, the gals? Some people were just getting married. Some were looking to propose. So you would get all these types of jewelry within these. And it's pretty fun, isn't it? I mean, you're looking at one. What kind of stuff are you looking at there?
So you can see the guys' rings here in the blue, that beautiful baby blue. I mention the color so much because Mark Jewelers are in different colors. They've got like black, dark blue, red, gorgeous purple, back to the wedding rings, wedding bands. And like Tom was saying, like a lot of them do too have like the class rings and stuff. So you basically pick out your jewelry, fill out your order form, and here's the back of it too.
There you go, just like right in the center. So tell me what this particular example, which is actually a pretty cool X-Men key. What is that paper quality like? The actual ad itself. I'm curious.
It's really thick. I'll show you guys again. It's not the same as like the interior pages. So like, you know, your interior pages are going to be like kind of like that newspapery feel, but the Mark Jeweler itself is like a little bit lighter than cardstock, but it is thicker. It does have a gloss, like a high gloss to it. And actually when you're hunting, because I actually get asked this a lot, like, how do I find a Mark Jeweler? Because I just want at least one. And I'm like, well, it takes some time. Looking down on all the comics, you'll see like a really thick colored line in the middle. Of course, you guys won't be able to see it on screen. But like right down the center, if you're looking down while you're hunting, you can see like a thick band that's like really dark in the middle of the comic. Because that paper is so thick, you can actually see it before opening it as well.
Absolutely. You know, my experience with Mark Jewelers dates back quite a ways, because I knew that these were special back then. I think I was instructed by one of my mentors at the time, and it was akin to the newsstand. Which, by the way, can you show that comic that you just had in your hand and show me the barcode?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This right here is a barcode akin to a newsstand. These comics are newsstands indeed. They just have a whole extra layer of extra stuff inside. And that right there is what makes them hyper collectible. And scarcity is the main thing. High grade is the next thing. But also something to note is that some key comics made their way to these bases and found themselves with a Mark Jewelers, but other comics didn't, which is interesting because I have experienced working with other buyers, collectors of Mark Jewelers in the last decade, some of which are in other countries. A lot of these members serve the military, so they're all over the world. I had someone in Australia exclusively looking for Mark Jeweler G.I. Joe comic books. You know, others that were looking for Werewolf by Night specific. And the things that they told me was, I'm looking for this list of Mark Jewelers, and I'd get these lists from different individuals. And it's always fun getting collectors' lists. And on this list, multiple of them, there would be highlights of, I know this exists, and this is approximately what I would expect it to go for. But some of them were highlighted like, I don't know if it exists, because not every comic book got this ad. Not every comic book was brought to newsstand to be sold in this way. So some may or may not exist. And when they pop up, if a collector's looking for them, they'll pay an inflated amount. How much? Well, let's actually show them. Comic fam, hit that like, slap the subscribe. That's why we're here. I got some various sales, recent sales that have happened over on eBay. So Sammy, what I'm looking at right now is an Amazing Spider-Man 346. We have a Venom cover, Eric Larson goodness, and this has a Mark Jeweler on the inside. What you're gonna see here is that a 9.4 graded copy went for $500. All right, why? Why would this see such an inflated amount? Well, it's because of the grade. It's because of the scarcity. But how much more is this worth? Well, let's take a look at what this book actually goes for over on GPA in the same grade. So GPA hasn't even caught up to some of the recent sales. So this book just sold, and I just told you how much it was for. It was for $500. GPA 9.4 shows $86 for a 9.4 in the same grade, non-Mark Jeweler. So does it just stop there? No, because here's another example. Right now, Comic Fam, for our audio listeners, available on SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. We have DC Comics Presents issue 26. We have the new Teen Titans. We have a 9.2 Mark Jeweler that sold in September for $750 on auction. Let's take a look at the GPA.
Oh my gosh.
Right, it's a cool book. I actually really like it.
Oh, it is. I have a couple. I love it.
9.2 on GPA. We're looking at a $500 sale, upwards of $200+ more expensive for a Mark Jeweler versus a standard 9.2 copy. And I found another one for you because it doesn't just stop there. Let's take a look at New Mutants 98. This book in Mark Jeweler's has been hot.
Oh, wowza.
First appearance of?
Deadpool
right here, 9.4. Notice all of these have a barcode because all of them are technically newsstands. $2,000 for a CGC 9.4. We have a recent sale as of November for $565. And inflation, that is incredible. And what do we know, Sammy, about newsstands as it pertains to price worth when the barcode is present? It's all dependent on what?
Oh, yeah, how good the condition is.
And what we're looking at are 9.0s and 9.2s that are seeing inflation.
Absolutely. And one thing that's like super interesting about the Mark Jeweler, and just like putting my own like kind of experience on it, not with particularly Mark Jewelers, but like Tony, my husband, being in the military, is jewelry is such a popular gift when they're deployed and they're away. Every time he's gone, he always gets me jewelry every single time. So it makes me think of these Mark Jewelers, like, yeah, we may know that a book got printed in a Mark Jeweler, but how many still have the Mark Jeweler? I mean, obviously a lot of these got used.
Absolutely.
Mailed in for the jewelry.
It's like they were incented to take it out, just like the coupons in the back of the book, you know, the Marvel value stamps, for example. But it's like a whole different notch because this is literally an ad. You know, some people are going to cut out that coupon, but if you're like serving the military, are you real? You know, I can't imagine why members wouldn't do those types of things, go out of their way to cut out around those dotted lines. Like, I can see why people wouldn't do that, but they still did. And over here, we have an ad that was literally placed in after the fact, you know, after it was printed, that is meant to be utilized, and they did. So we're talking 5% of the print run, already newsstands. Actually, let's back it up. We're talking about newsstand comics, all right? And that in itself, check the last video, means that this percentage is quite small, especially in high grade. But then they made their ways to these military bases, stores that are nearby, and then they have an ad on the inside that was largely picked out, cut out. So we're talking about grades that are seeing an inflation beyond what you would expect a newsstand to see, because that's how exciting these books are. And believe it or not, it was really a very small subcategory of collectors that even cared about these for quite a long time. We've only begun to see the Mark Jeweler craze, I would say, in the last 4 years alone. So,
ooh, mic drop.
Mic drop. So, comic fam, you're in for a treat because obviously Mark Jewelers are scarce. Mark Jewelers are wanted, especially for key books. But I think there's an added layer of collectability to this particular comic book style. And that is something that can only be explained by someone who experienced it firsthand. And Sammy, who do we have to join us on the mic today?
All right, we have my dad, Stephen Lewis. So he was in the military. My grandfather traveled around the world working for the government, and he's going to share about his experience like straight up in the OG days with Mark Jewelers.
We got Stephen on the mic. Comic fam, this is a special occasion for me because I've talked about Mark Jewelers so many damn times, like countless times, but I've never had someone on the show who experienced them in real time back in the day. Stephen, thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for telling my age.
It's a good thing in our community, yo. It means you got character and you've been around to experience the stuff that we all collect. So it's a great thing. And I got to ask,
yes.
You served our country. Tell me a little bit about that and how comics played a role, if they did.
Okay, yeah. In the Air Force, I was a weapons loader and a weapons loading instructor. So we went to the Gulf War with the B-52s and loaded bombs, and was a trainer on the B-2 bomber afterwards. And got a medical retirement and been retired and doing all kinds of wonderful things ever since. But yes, the Mark Jewelry Company there, that... Am I saying it right? Why'd you give me that?
No,
look?
that's perfect. Yeah, Mark
at
Jewelers,
you. Oh, yeah.
Mark Jewelry, it's all right.
You're good.
They're not around anymore, so we're good. You're not going to get upset with us.
You guys are the professionals here. I actually am the guy who was the kid that just thought, oh, cool, look at the cool rings. And so I was, oh my gosh, we were over in Germany. My father worked for the government. So we were over in Germany, and we would go to the base exchange, which was the BX, and they had the different comics in there just sitting on the rack. And so every once in a while you'd see them in there. But then we had a cool place called a thrift store. And I wasn't collecting comics, by the way. which I see all this stuff now and I want to kick myself in the butt because we used to go to a place called the thrift store and they would sell us for $1. You could get 25 comic books. It's insane.
That's so
But
cool.
they were tied in twine. So you had your bundle of 25, you'd go home with them. They were bent up, you'd roll them up, stick them in your back pocket, go for rides, share them with your buddies, and you would get 25 back together again. And when you traded them in, you just stayed in that loop of the buck. So you would trade 25 in, grab another 25, throw them $1, boom.
This is
And
a
you
first that I'm
always
hearing
had-
about this.
Oh, yeah.
I did not. So it's almost as if you're renting these out and bringing them
Literally.
back. This is actually akin to what how comics would be sold in some foreign countries as well. Specifically like India, for example. I have foreign comic books that were sold on newsstands and they're tattered. They're kept together by tape, but on the inside, you'll see a list sometimes of people who've had them.
Yep.
And it's because people couldn't afford them sometimes over there. And what they would do is they'd bring them back and exchange them. So, wow,
Yep.
you're blowing my mind here. So that means that these comics, if they've lasted, they may have
Yes.
traded multiple hands.
Yes, because you could either keep what you had, or if you found a cool one in there, you would just take another one that you had and throw it in there to make up the 25. And it was a way to keep you go to the thrift store and everything was inexpensive there. So you could go in, get a bundle of comics. I think I'm going to get a bundle of comics this week. And you just went in and got them at any time. And I wasn't attached to anybody, any characters. It was just we were kids reading comic books and we would see the jewelry page and we would literally go through and take turns, me and my brother, and say, all right, which one would you pick? I picked that one. Well, I picked this one. Whoa, $300, man. And the diamonds were just popping out. It was insane, man.
Oh, I love it. This is so cool. Okay, so it sounds like there wasn't a whole lot of intention behind
No.
like, I'm going to try to get the next book. I'm reading one and I got to find the next issue. It's like just you get what you get.
We were kids, yeah, literally, and that was just something they were always in the comic books back then. This is the early 70s, well, 76, 78. It was just one of those things like the seahorses. There was the seahorses, there was the army men in the chest. There were all these little ads in the comic books, and you would get to those and you would take the time to actually look at them.
So
Sea monkeys, yeah.
Sea monkeys. So I'm curious when you see Mark Jewelers now, because some members, they just see him and go, yeah, this is just a scarce ad. It makes the comic book worth a little bit more. I've always known that they were a bit more special than that. When you see a Mark Jewelers, what does it make you feel like? What kind of like nostalgia do you experience?
First of all, I feel like a loser because I've had so many of them things in my hands. Yeah, it looks awesome. It makes you smile like, whoa, that's insane. They're collecting those things. Why did we do what we did? If I had a time machine and could keep every comic book that I've had over the years, and oh my gosh, no words. It's really awesome to see, but it does make you think, woulda, shoulda, coulda. What if we knew what we know now? The things I'm learning from Samantha and Tony on Skeleton Key and the crew. It's like, oh my gosh, it's insane.
It's pretty wild, isn't it? I've had
Yeah.
some experiences buying collections and having friends buy collections from individuals who served in the military. And the way we found out was, oh, these are all Mark Jewelers. Did you
Wow.
serve? Did you travel? Did you live in Europe or something? Like, what happened? And every single time, oh yeah, I live by a base. This is where I got them. So to them, it's just, this is how comics were. And it's always a fun thing introducing individuals to these particular variants because they have a history that's so rich and, it means more than just the ads. So I really appreciate you being here today to give us the lowdown. And you did mention a couple things I want to point out, Comic Fam. You said that you'd see them on spinner racks, similar to like a newsstand would be, because
Yeah.
these were newsstands. You saw them wrapped up in twine. Tell me about condition when you experienced these.
Do we want to know?
Yeah, in the stores, they looked awesome. I mean, I was telling my daughter, I said, it's funny how we would get $2 for allowance. We thought we were rich. But I used to go buy junk with it when I could have bought a comic book and saved it, And so in the actual store, like you said, it was the turnstile type ones where you just spin it and look, and those were in great condition. Some were in plastic, some weren't. And then, but now at the thrift store, the ones in twine, you can only imagine, they were beat up. Like, they were just beat up. But people would read them, or people would move, and then they would take a bunch to the thrift store. So you would stand there, and you would peel the corner back, looking through the bundle to see which ones you wanted, and then you would take that bundle and go. But, yeah, the condition wasn't very good.
Fantastic.
Over time.
It makes sense why members are hunting for these high-grade copies.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being on, Stephen. Sammy,
Yeah.
anything that you want to ask, maybe that I'm not thinking of?
I think you hit everything, and especially the part where you were talking about how beat up they were, and like they were basically shared with everyone that lived in that base.
Yes.
Because when I find a Mark Jeweler, I collect the X-Men Mark Jewelers. I've only found 2 higher grade ones. The rest I've found detached covers, like a kid peeled back the corners.
Yes.
So like
It's
they
rough.
look
Pull them
so
staples out.
horrible. Yeah. So like it's interesting hearing that, because like when I'm like going through comics, right, and there's like a coffee stain, I'm like, oh man, that person really enjoyed that coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it just like goes to show like they're not only like rare in itself, but yeah, it's even super rare to like have found the one that made it, that survived the
Yeah.
kids' hands, the like wherever they go, if the airmen bought them, and yeah.
Yeah. We had good immunities back then. We touched everything.
You guys sharing gems. I love it, Stephen. I appreciate you being on. We're going to have to get you back on the show sometime.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Comic fam, slap that like and subscribe. We're getting this type of comic book themed content. Comic Book 101. Sammy from Skeleton Key. All right. The convention scene is opening back up. We got Emerald City in a week. C2E2 is like a week later. I'm not going to make it, but had this been next year, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at all these cons. I miss the con floor. I miss the community. What are some of the funnest things for you at the convention to experience, Sammy?
Oh, the number one fave is the community.
Hands down.
Honestly, it's the community. I can buy comics online. I can buy comics at my LCS. Yeah, I can get them at a con too. But the thing I don't get anywhere else is seeing the comic community. That's my absolute, hands down, top 1 through 5. That's my favorite.
The comic fam. You don't even
Yes.
need to have met these individuals in person before. When you see them on the floor and you remember them from IG, from YouTube, just however our paths cross, you look at each other and you just know this is a homie. And it's going to be a good time. Aside from that, though, we also have a lot of comic books that you can look through. I mean, these are comic book conventions, damn it. Even though they're feeling less and less like that. Now that we've been on hiatus and haven't gone to one in so long, I don't even care. If there's even one long box, I'm going to be happy, But the convention scene, there's a lot of members who haven't been to a con, especially because of how long it's been, and members who may be looking for, like, making sure that this experience they have is the absolute best it can be, because it's maybe the only con they go to. They may be picking and choosing. And I wanted to hit the mic and have you, Sammy, as well as me, bring some tips and tricks, in particular, things that we bring to conventions every time. I think you told me for the idea of this, Sammy, it was like, if I don't have these things, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be frustrated with myself. It's like if you leave your phone, So why don't you tell the comic fam some things that you can't leave the house without when you go to a comic book convention?
All right, so I wanted to show you guys my essentials because I actually get asked this a lot about what I take to conventions. So it starts out with the perfect backpack. Get a backpack you love, all right? And so I get my comic holders to put my finds in, especially the ones that are like super high grade or a little more pricier. I always like to put in a comic book portfolio. Then the backpack that I have has this. It's a laptop holder, but I call it a slab holder. I can fit like 3 slabs in this pouch, and it's padded. The next thing I love to take is my gloves. The reason I take gloves is because a lot of booths will allow you, once they peel the tape, they'll allow you to look at the books that you want. And I always, I feel like it's really respectful to put on a pair of gloves, and I always get thanked for it. So I always take a pair of gloves for handling the books. And on the note of handling the books, now, trust me, I have never had anyone, a shop owner, say that they were offended by the fact that I always take a black light to the con, because like this is a very easy and quick way to see any type of residue on a comic book is by shining a black light over the cover real quick. It's not weird at all. And I always say, hey, I'm just gonna like put my gloves on, like shine a little light on it, and they're like, yeah, do whatever you want. Let me know if you want to buy it.
That is awesome. I love that tip of the black light. You know, I need to get myself one of those tiny ones. I have it's like the size of a flashlight that I use here at home, but that tiny one is like a keychain one. Comic Fam, you're getting some great tips here from Sammy. I love this.
I get all this stuff right off Amazon, like super cheap.
Okay, hey, do me a favor. You mentioned a portfolio. I think you mean the comic book store folios. Can you show that again and explain what that is?
Absolutely. So this is my comic book portfolio, and I like to put my more expensive stuff in here. I can fit 2 of these in my backpack, and I like to take them with me, like I said, to hold those like higher end books, but they hold not magazine size. They do have a magazine size one, but they hold regular size issues, raw issues.
Fantastic. Okay, so Comic Fam, some tips and tricks for me. I can't not go to a convention without some of these things. Now, it's always nice if you are able to befriend someone who's actually a seller, exhibitor at the particular convention you attend, because then you have a spot to store your stuff. That's a little tip. If you know somebody there, they may have a little room under their booth. I'm sure there's dealers going, oh no, don't say that, Tom. All of our friends are going to start asking now, but it's the truth. This is what you're here for, Comic Fam. Got to give you those tips and tricks. But this first tip changed my life at a convention. What you're looking at here is a Magna Cart by Welcome Productions. These go for about $40 on Amazon. And what this is, it's a folding cart, Comic Fam. And what I'm talking about here for our audio listeners is something that is easily transportable. It can fold up into itself. It has wheels on it. And this is going to be something that's more for lightweight. You know, you're not looking to move a mattress on this thing. It's metal, but it's also got plastic as well. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow you to put 1, if not 2 short boxes. And if you have some like bungee cable, you can wrap it around that. And this right here solves the problem of storing your comic books. What you don't want to have happen is you find books, find a collection. All of a sudden, you didn't anticipate getting 50 comics, but then you know what? You found the run. You found a lot of great books. Maybe a dealer's doing a deal. Buy so many, get so many free. And all of a sudden, your backpack is bulging, and the entire convention, you're thinking, I want to go back to the hotel room and drop these off.
Absolutely.
You're thinking, these are getting damaged every step I take. Every breath you take, you're damaging the comic books. So that's my first tip for the Comic Fam is grab yourself a lightweight cart with wheels. Again, for our audio listeners, you can look this up. Magna Cart on Amazon. They're like $40. Get it to you really quick. It's going to save you a lot of trouble.
And Tom, I want to share with you too, because I actually grabbed my cart with
let me
the
see your
bungee
cart.
cables. It pops out too. You just step on it and it like folds open. I absolutely love this thing. Also got it on Amazon, and I'll show you my short box I travel around with. One tip I want to share with you guys, DIY carry-on. You can get the cart, either the one like Tom just showed you, or this one right on Amazon. Put your short box on it, and it works as a carry-on on the plane if you're traveling to cons.
Ooh. Great tip. Didn't even
hack.
think about that. What a great life hack. Protect your books. Okay, a couple other tips on my end that I want to provide. Sharpies. If you're going to go to a convention and get things signed, there's 2 items that I recommend you have in your backpack. Because I also recommend a backpack, but Sammy already said that one, so I got to do some new ones. The first one is this. This right here is CGC's Signature Series bags. They actually sent us a bunch of these at one point. What's cool about these, you do have to purchase them, right? But if you're looking to have something signed by a creator, the last thing you want to experience is fumbling around your collectible, one that's worth signing, typically worth money, and then pulling it out of the bag, just fumbling it around. What if you have more than one thing? It's no fun to do that, especially if you just waited in line for a larger creator like Todd McFarlane, who you're only going to have like 5 seconds to stand in front of. Their helpers will get involved. Like, you don't want to risk someone else touching your comic book. So what this is a fold out plastic sheet. You store your comic book with a board without a bag in here. And what's going to end up happening is this page is going to hold the comic book on the inside with the board, and it's going to keep the front of the comic book open and vulnerable to the elements, which would be a problem had there not be a fold out here that you then wrap around to protect the front. And what ends up happening, Comic Fam, for our audio listeners, is that you have a fully wrapped comic that if you open the page, now the artist, the writer who's going to sign it, they have easy access to the cover. You're not having to take it out. You're not having to remove it from a bag. If you have tape on your bag because you ran out of resealable bags because there's a plastic shortage, national paper shortage, what's going on? Well, you don't have to worry about that, tape removal where you can then rub the comic book and mess up the book all at once. It's a beautiful thing when it happens, because it's terrible and it's like a miraculous thing that takes place. It's not beautiful. It's actually very ugly, and I wish it on no one, not even my greatest enemy, Sammy. But the last thing that I have to point out is Sharpies. If you're gonna get things signed by creators, do yourself a solid favor. Go shopping, get some alternative colored Sharpies. And what you can do is supply yourself with red, with silver, with gold. Look at other creators and how they sign their comic books. And when you see one that's nice, a signature that pops on a cover, use that as inspiration on what you should try to get yourself, because Sharpies only have a lifespan of so many signatures. I don't know that, but any artist or writer who signs at a convention, they'll be able to tell you, oh, it's only 500 I can get out of it. Even though most people can get 1,000 uses out of it, they want their signature to look great every time. So they're going through a ton of Sharpies. So it's rare for them to have an assortment of Sharpies. Most of the time, it's just black. And that's cool, but if you got a black cover, you can't see the signature. What are you doing? Why are you even waiting in line? So do yourself a favor, get different colored Sharpies, and I'll do you one extra step. Bring some hand sanitizer or some wet wipes, like sanitizing wipes, because if you're gonna hand a pen to the creator, maybe you give it a quick spray, wipe it down, hand it to them. They'll appreciate it, especially in the environment that we're in. Sammy, any last tips?
No, I absolutely love that you said the hand sanitizer thing, because that is super important. And it's such a part of everyday life now that I wouldn't have thought to bring it up.
I know, right? But we got to. I
know.
The last convention, I'm going to leave you here, Comic Fam, with this. Like and subscribe, comment down below. Make sure if you're listening to this on the audio, go to the YouTube channel, comment on the YouTube channel, because that's how we source the giveaway winners. I have a Joker #1. Let me show it to the Comic Fam. Raph Grissetti variant. Going to one lucky person who comments, lets me know. I'll get you a better copy. This one just bent in my hand. It's a damaged book. No worries. When I attended the last convention, it was C2E2. I did coverage for CGC. This is now 2 years ago. It's literally been that long since I've gone to a convention. It was at that con that we heard about the first cases of the sickness that has stopped the world. It happened while we were on the con floor. I'm talking to Jeff going, oh my gosh, cases showed up in this like nearby cities that we live in. So that entire convention, I remember, shout out Brittany, she hooked me up over at CGC with a bottle of hand sanitizer. And what you would have found if you found me on the con floor is in my back pocket, I literally had a bottle of hand sanitizer that you would typically have on the table, just in my back pocket. And throughout the entire con, whenever I saw Comic Fam members, I met up with Jeff, or shout out Nate Johnson. they'd be like, oh, let me get some sanitizer. And they go, I turn around and they'd be like, squirt, squirt, squirt. And they do the hand sanitizer. It started literally at the last con. Everybody was just holding on to it. So you don't want to be a person looking for Tom to turn around to get the hand sanitizer from his back of his pants. That's what I'm saying, comic fan. Bring your own hand sanitizer. And Sammy, what do you got going on? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Skeleton Key Comics. You can find me right here on YouTube, of course, Whatnot, and here.
And at convention soon, possibly.
And yes, at convention soon, Emerald City and C2E2. Don't be afraid to say hey. I'm super excited to see everyone.
We appreciate your time today. Hit that like, slap the subscribe, and as always,
geek responsibly.
Have a great week, comic fam. Enough said.
See you guys.